now start our webinar today. And as I said, we are going to see how fire safety comes in when we are speaking of building a business resilience. In our workplace, in the business that we are having, and even at our homes. So we're going to see how fire safety comes in, and what are we supposed to consider most, what are we supposed to include when we are thinking of that way. Um, Now to start with, maybe we need to understand what do we really mean when we are speaking of business resilience. It's an ability where we can maintain our operation, or we can ensure that our operation runs smooth. The people, the assets, the resources, the equipment, and everything that we have at our business, it's maintained, and even the reputation of that business or of that company is being maintained when we are facing disruption. So, in the face of any disruption and in the face of any emergency, how can we get back? How can we maintain the same reputation, the same operations to continue as it was intended? How can we make sure that we have an emergency? Yes, but people are still protected, and even the assets that we have are still protected. That is what we really speak about when we are talking about business resilience. So in this one, we have a number of measures from the proactive measures that we have to mitigate the risk that can be happening in our workplace. There are a number of risks when we are speaking of this one, from the reputational risk, from the financial risk, even the safety risk that can be happening at our workplace. And those reactive strategies that we can have in the face of crisis, when we are facing the crisis, what are the measures that we have in place to make sure that we mitigate that crisis and that emergency that has happened, and we get back to our feet, or we get back to what was established from the beginning. So as we can see in today's business landscape, uh, obvious emergencies are inevitable. So we cannot predict when, we cannot say that we cannot have any emergency. Emergencies really happen sometimes, and some things are out of our own control. There's some things happen like climatic issues that we can really not control them. So we say that there are distractions and emergencies are always inevitable into any business. But as a business personnel or as a HSC, safety personnel, you should be prepared from the very early beginning to know, in that phase of an emergency, in that phase of any crisis, how can you really navigate to make sure that you go smooth into that uncertainty, you go smooth into that disruption that has happened, you go smooth into that emergency, and ensure that the stakeholders that you have, that their trust is still there, and you become even more stronger than how you were before, because we always say that challenge are there to make us more stronger. So we expect that after this one, we will know that what we are supposed to prepare ourselves, and how are we supposed to prepare ourselves, what are we supposed to consider, so that when any emergency happen, they will not shake our business, or they will not shake the safety of our people or the workplace that we are having. It's very important to really consider these ones. And we say one among the advantage or the importance of having this business resilience is that we ensure that the operations continue even in the face of emergency, but we continue the operations, but we protect the stakeholders that we have, those stakeholders of interest. It's going to be the government, the shareholders that are there into your business that you have in your workplace, the people and everything that we have. This one ensure that we protect their interest, but again we maintain or we enhance the reputation of our company or our workplace. And I will really tell you, in this business world, reputation is something that really matter. It's one of the very important things, because if your reputation is damaged, then the business can not continue. Even the work will be hard for us who are employees into that company. So with this resilience, we ensure that the reputation of the company and the reputation of the brand itself is being enhanced and maintained, and we gain from all the that we have, including those people who are coming to buy from our clients, our the society that we have, the people surrounding us. We make sure that we gain their trust as we continue with the operation, but as we are facing this disruption into our workplace. So that is a short introduction. Yes, I've seen people are saying the slide is not moving. Yes, I was still in the same first slides. I was trying to give deep explanation on that, so that as we are proceeding forward, we will all capture, we will all understand what we mean and what is really important to what we are talking about. So if we want to understand the business resilience, then we have three things we need to consider. As I said earlier, that distractions, emergencies, crises are inevitable, and we really don't know when are they going to happen into our workplace or into our business. And we cannot say that they will not happen into our business. So the first thing we need to consider is to anticipate. So from the trends of the business, not looking from just your own business or just your own workplace, but learning from other workplaces around the world, the trends, what's really happening outside the world, what are the challenges that other people face. It might be in your company you have not faced it, but you cannot say that you will not face it. So you have to go read the trends that has been happening in your workplace or in your industry, and what are the challenges, and then you anticipate what can be the future trend in your company or in that industry line. So with all right. Now I will continue. Uh, So I was saying, if you want to really understand the business resilience, and if you really want to build, then you must have three things at hand. You should be able to anticipate what may comes ahead into your workplace or into the line of the industry that you are working on. And how do you anticipate? You read the trends that has been happening into your industry or into your workplace, the challenges that has been happening, and not a must to be direct into where you are working, but in the world, there are so many workplaces that work in the same line as you. So you are trying to gather all the data from the world, like what has been happening outside there, what challenges has been faced outside there, and then having all those enough data will help you to predict what can be the future trends. So if we have been having like 1,000 fire happening in the year 2024, and these are the reasons that has been happening. So you can predict in the year 2026 what can happen if these are not addressed. So with anticipating, it helps you to prepare, to have a proactive preparation of what's coming ahead than waiting for you to react when you have an expected event or you have an emergencies at your workplace. So after you anticipate of what lies ahead, it comes to the second thing, because just knowing like what can happen, it is not enough. You need to organize yourself. So after gathering all the data and having all the expectation for the future trend, so you try to find to consider how to organize yourself for how you can act when these things happen. So you are trying to bring all the elements into one thing, and trying to see that each element can reinforce each other in an organization. Like an organization is a dynamic system, so you try to see every element can interact with each other. For example, you might say, so this electrical system, if it's not clear, it can interact with another system, and it can lead to fire. So if the finance is not okay, it can interact with the other thing, then we might fail to invest, and then in the future we can fail to proceed. So you try to organize yourself, and when you're organizing yourself, you have to consider three things when you're organizing yourself for the what coming ahead or for the future. You have to consider the adaptability. So that thing that you are planning, or that thing that you are organizing for you to be safe in the future, I will ask you, is that strategy, is that system that you are keeping in place, is it adaptable enough? Can you really adapt it? Okay, I'm sorry. So can you really adapt that thing, or we are just letting it be into our maybe our documents, and then we cannot really work with it? But again, if that is strategy that you have, is it agility enough? Can it really react that fast in the face of an emergency? But is it reliable? Like when it react, or when it act into that phase of an emergency, can we really take our operation on and our workplace back to where we were before, and even more stronger than where we were before? So you have to consider those three things are very, very important when you're organizing yourself for the future. And after organizing now you have already anticipated, you have already organized, you have already put everything down into documentations, or whatever system that you have to make sure that everything is being organized. Then you have to go to the next step. Having the things or the strategies or the plans in paper or in your laptop is not enough. You have to make sure that you adapt to those, because as we said earlier, emergencies are inevitable, and we really don't know when will they happen into our workplace. So if you keep them into in your PC or in the paper today, and you say like I will work with it next year, then you might find the coming month an emergency happen, and you still have nothing in place to help you. So you have to make sure that you adapt those strategies that you have placed, you have kept in place. Make sure that you adapt them, you implement them, and you make sure that they still work into your workplace, so that whenever anything happens, they can act accordingly and make sure that everything is being maintained. And if we are speaking of adapting, it now starts with the management. So from the management, are you really ready to adapt? Are you really ready to embrace the shift that can be happening into the your management, into your operation, if really need it? Because sometimes emergencies happen due to technology change. So are you really ready to adapt to what's come ahead, and all the strategies that has been placed there, has been put in place, and all even the practices? Because you cannot just say that my employees will do that. No, you as a safety personnel, as a leader into that workplace, and I really like to consider everyone as a leader into a working environment. So you as a leader, have you prepared yourself to adapt to any changes, even if it means going against what your thinking is, or what your standard is, just to make sure that you safeguard your workplace and in the face of any emergency in your workplace? So I will say anticipate for what lies ahead, organize yourself enough, considering the adaptability of the strategies, the agilities and the resilience of the strategies, and then adapt all the strategies that you have planned for you to be safe. So Um, Up to there, I do hope that we have captured something. We have got something. Now, for example, when you are trying to assess, when you are trying to anticipate like what lies ahead, for example, you need to assess the threat. So this is an example of the fire incident in the business setting. For example, in 2014 to 2018, this Federation of European Risk Management Association reported that we had almost, the fire incident account for almost 10% of all the property losses that has been experienced into the business world. So 10% is a lot. And this 10% is only for the fire incident, not to mention all other emergencies that can be happening into your business setting. You can see we have the structure fires up to, for the office structure fires, up to 3,000 and above. For the industrial, the manufacturing companies, the industrial setting, up to 1,000 plus fires. And we had the number of deaths that resulted from those fires, a number of injuries that were resulted from those fires. These are all the losses that has been experienced because of fire. And you have the direct property damage, the financial losses that has been experienced uh, because of just those fires that has been happening. Up to $200 million has been lost just because of the fire incident that has been happening to the business sector. So this is a lot of things, and losing all of this, I don't believe that there is any company or anyone who is willing to lose all of this. So you have this data, then you need to know that, okay, because fire is one of the emergencies that can be happening to our industrial setup or in your business setup, then you need to plan to try first to see what can be the cause of these fires, and then you plan ahead. How can you really manage those fire? How can you really navigate into the face of a fire incident? So we can see the common causes of fires into the workplace. It's mostly from electrical faults, uh, the human errors, our own error. Um, Probably we have an employees who is not inducted into the work they are doing. We have people who really don't know what's real, what's really the hazard and the risk into the workplace, and they lead to fires. It's also among the common cause of fire into the workplace. But again, the presence of combustible materials, the flammable materials that are not really well managed into our workplace. You find somewhere we have a combustible waste has been piled into one area, there's huge build up, and then the fire starts. It has been also the common cause of fire into the workplace. But also having the manufacturing equipment, it's among the common cause of fires in a workplace. So now, in an organization or in any business, it's very important you identify what are the common cause, and after you identify them, it's very important that you mitigate these potential sources of ignition so that you make sure that nothing can be happening, or if there's something happening, then you are able to manage it. You are able to control it and ensure that your operation or your business is still safe. You can still navigate. You can still proceed, or you are even more stronger in your business. Now, we have seen the common causes, but what are the potential impact that we usually have when a fire incident has happening into our business setting or into our workplace? And I can tell you the consequence of the fire incident, if it extends beyond the property damage. Most of us, we just know that our property is being damaged, our asset is being damaged, but I will tell you, trust me, that the incident or the consequence of fire incident, they really extend beyond that property damage that you have faced. It's true that you have faced a loss into your asset. Yes, very true, but they are more than that. Now think about the downtime that you need to go because of the asset that has been lost. Think about the operation that cannot continue uh, because of the fire that has been happening. It's a lot. And you find with the downtime and the disruption to operation, you are losing a millions of money because of that. Think about the revenue loss. Probably you are supposed to get a certain number or a certain revenue per day, but you are not getting it just because you had a fire incident. And it probably it has led you to closure to for 1 year, 2 years. So think about the revenue that you are losing. But also thinking about your reputational, I mean, the company, the workplace reputation that has been damaged, and which is it's very bad for any workplace. But we are facing reputational damage because of the fire incident. But also think about the potential legal liabilities, because sometimes, and not sometimes, there are some regulations that are ahead of us. There are compliances that we are supposed to consider. But if we didn't consider, then it has led to the fire incident. We are also facing legal liabilities, potential fines into that, cost of non-compliance. All of these ones are all the consequence of the fire incident. So it's not just the property damage, but there is more to this one. So it's very important to understand all this risk as we are speaking of a fire incident and a business resilience. So what are we supposed to do? What we are supposed to do is to make sure that we build a secure environment. A secure environment is the one that consider or really anticipate of what may come ahead, and it's really prepared for what may come ahead. So as today we are speaking of fire safety. If we are speaking of the fire incident, that means speaking of business resilience in the face of fire. Now you are speaking of the measures that you put in place today to make sure that you prevent any kind of fire that can happen into your workplace or into your business setup, and not just preventing it, because sometimes you can have all the measure that you can have to prevent the fire, but it can still start. So once it starts, you have all the measure to make sure that you detect that fire before even it's become a very large fire that you cannot control. So you have the means to prevent, you have the means to detect the fire, and you have the means to respond to the fire in case the fire has been detected into your workplace. Though now you need to make sure that you have the system today to react when there is a fire into your workplace. So that is how we build up a secure environment into the face of fire safety. Now, now, when we are speaking of these measures, now they include from having the policies in place, the strong policies that has been communicated to everyone and everyone know them. Uh, we are speaking of having all the installation that can detect and can suppress the fire system, the fire incident into workplace. We are speaking of having a very strong emergency response plan, and not just emergency response plan, a very strong emergency response team that is well prepared and well trained to act in the face of an emergency. But not just that team, I mean, not just the ERT team, because some workplace in some company, the ERT team is very good, but the staff are not trained. So, including training of the staff that you are having, everyone that intern to your workplace, from the top management to the normal employee, even the housekeepers, even the security people, everyone that comes in and that works in your workplace, are they trained enough to act into the face of emergency? Do they really know what are they supposed to do? And how are they supposed to do it? And at what time? At what speed? At what pace? So making sure that everyone is trained enough, and even inducting the visitors that even come to your workplace. Because if they face emergency into your workplace and they're affected, that damages your reputation also. So when we're speaking of the staff training, it goes beyond the staff who are the normal staff that you're having. The visitor that you are having at your workplace in a day, are they influenced of what can be the effect, or what fire incidents can happen and how can they be affected, and how are they supposed even to react if that thing really happened into their workplace. So it is very important to consider all of this one. And that's why we are required as a business people and in the workplace environment to make sure that we are there to all the safety regulations. I will tell you one thing or one secret today. These regulations are not kept there to hurt us, but are kept there to make sure that our workplace is being safeguarded. So it's very important that you make sure that you are there to whatever local authorities guidelines that you have, the relevant agents, depending into your line of business, even the international standard, because sometimes the local standard may be not strong enough, then you can adapt to the international standard to make sure that your workplace is always safe and you are really prepared into the face of an emergency. Now, we have seen the fire safety. Now, you will all agree with me that preparing for fire safety, having enough preparation, well documented, active system in place, is a very fundamental component when we are speaking of a business continuity planning. So if we really need to make sure that our business continue, even in the face of an emergency, then fire safety is something that we cannot comprehend, we cannot negligate. It's something that we really need to take care of it. So from incorporating the risk assessment, I mean the fire risk assessment, the recovery plan is all of them can help an organization to mitigate the impact of the fire incident in the operation and facilitate that we have the swift recovery when we have the fire emergency into our workplace. Now, someone will ask a question that we safety personnel people we usually find, or many companies usually have. People have always been seeing the safety or the fire safety as a cost adding element into their business. And they really don't pay attention to it. But we have seen how much it can really affect our business or our workplace. So we as a safety personnel people, we as leaders into our company, we as employees into our company, how can we really say that fire safety measures are cost effective? Try to look about preventing those fire damage. We are seeing the number of that can be happening because of fire, and this is how we can say so they prevent those costly and even deadly fire damage that can be happening to our place. They also help us to minimize the business interaction, because when you have a fire emergency, everything will stop for you to act on it, to investigate. It takes time, it takes manpower, it takes resources. But if you have a fire safety measure, a very strong fire safety measure, that means you minimize those interruptions. But you're also avoiding those potential legal liabilities. You are avoiding those penalties. You are avoiding those non-compliance fees. You're avoiding a lot of legal liability because of fire safety measures. But you are also reducing those insurance premiums that you can be having, because those insurance people, when they come, they have to assess your workplace, see the risk that you have, and that's where they give you the premium to pay. But if you have a very strong measures to account into the fire of the fire into the face of the fire emergence, that means even the risk that you'll be having into the workplace will be reduced, and even the premium, the insurance premium that you'll be paying will be also reduced, which is a benefit to you or as a business person or your company as a safety personnel or a leader or an employee into that company. Now, let's see the roadmap into building a secure environment or building a resilient business. So the first thing you need to know, you need to do, and you need to do it now, is to invest in fire safety measure. Don't think that the upfront cost of installing and maintaining the fire system is too high compared to the benefits. I will tell you that the cost of installing and maintaining the fire safety system is far less than the potential cost or the potential damage that can be caused by the fire itself. So when you need to invest in a fire safety measure, first you need to really understand your business or your workplace setup. Not all the fire safety measure can be good or can be strong for your workplace. So you need to consider, you need to tailor the strategy, you need to tailor the plan, you need to tailor the measures, you need to tailor the equipment depending on your business setup, your workplace, your working environment, and where you are, where is your industry or your business located. So you need to consider what the type of the industry you're working in, because for the oil and gas will be different for the manufacturing industry, even the manufacturing industry. The paint manufacturing industry will be different from the soap manufacturing industry will be different from everything. So consider what type of the industry you're working on, uh, the buildings that you have, the layout of the buildings that you have. Don't just copy from what others are doing, but consider yourself, the building that you have and the layout that you have, the occupancy that you have, the people that you accommodate, the assets that you accommodate, the resources that you accommodate into your workplace. It's very important because they will tell you what type of fire you can have and what type of the equipment that you can have. So you also need to consider the occupancy level that you have and the presence of the hazardous material. Now, this one can be the combustible material, the flammable material. What material do you really have into your workplace? What materials, from the raw materials to the product, to the final product, what do you really work with? So if you really consider this, you will find that your strategy, your equipment, your plans, your measures, your response is tailored to that specific business setup and business environment. But after you tailor it, you have the system in place, you have the measures in place, you need to make sure that you monitor continuously that system, that measures that you have in place. So from the regular inspection, from servicing and maintenance of those systems that has been installed into a workplace, testing of those equipment time after time to make sure that they still work, because you are preparing for the date that you don't know. So you have to make sure that every day they work, they are active, they function as intended, they are accessible as intended into a workplace. And if there is anything that needs to be updated because the technology change, the hazard change, the environment change, make sure that you update those protocols accordingly, or you update those system accordingly, so that you can be sure that at any time your systems work. And in this one, don't forget to engage the employees and other stakeholders that are of interest to the business or to your workplace. Don't really forget to engage them. Train them, but also try to obtain their views. What do they really say? It's very in the face of emergency. They really know what to do, where to do it, at what time, at what pace. Everything is well set forward. When you are speaking of business continuity plan, you are speaking of developing all the strategies, developing all the business continue after you have an emergency, after you have a disruptive event into a workplace, such as fire. So when I'm saying business continuity planning, it's developing everything in place, strategies, procedures, system in place to make sure that we still continue to operate when we are in the face of any disruption, including the fire disruption. And here are the components of the business continuity plan, because first you need to, as I said earlier, you need to anticipate. So you perform a risk assessment, a fire risk assessment, where you identify the potential threats and vulnerabilities, including all the fire risks that are available, trying to understand what are the potential impacts they can have on the business operation. So after you have a comprehensive assessment, now you go to assessing the consequence, the impact, the business impact analysis, the impact they can be having into our workplace. For example, you might assess the financial losses that can be faced because of a single fire incident, the operational downtime that can be faced into the face of the fire incident, the reputation damage that a company can face into a face of a fire incident. So try to assess the consequence and even quantifying the consequence so that you can know the extent of the risk that you are having into your workplace. After you really analyze the impact, then you go to develop the responsive strategies. From those proactive measures to prevent the fire, to detect the fire, to all the reactive measures that you can have to address disruption in your workplace. And when I'm speaking of disruption right now, I'm speaking of the fire incident into your workplace that can be happening. So as we are developing this strategy, you establish the protocol and procedures to ensure that the continuity of the critical business functioning proceed, including the communication plans. You can have the alternative work arrangements you can have into your workplace, the resources, how are you going to reallocate or allocate your resources in the face of the fire emergency. So after everything, having all this at hand, don't forget to test your system. Try to conduct the regular drills where you simulate, like you are trying to simulate like a fire has happened or the fire is happening to our workplace. Then what can I do? How do we respond? How has my system or my strategy or my response plan, how is it active in responding to that emergency that you have? In this testing or in this simulation, there where you can know where you have a loophole into your workplace, onto your strategy, and then you can upgrade accordingly after you have read and you have seen what has happened into that, or how much has your system been strong into your workplace. I will tell you Fire incident represent a significant threat to the business continuity, and you need to really consider it when you are preparing for the business resilience or a business continuity. It's something that you really to take a serious note on it. Most of us usually took it as simple because there is no any recorded incident into our workplace. But trust me, you really need to take a very, very serious note on it. It's a very early beginning of your business, or it's a very early starting of anything that you are having in place. Because if the fire happen, can take down everything that you have been having in a second. And we don't want that to happen. We really don't want that thing to happen into our place. So we as safety personnel, we as employees, we as business leaders, we need to be serious and take a serious note on that. I hope we have all, uh, I hope we have captured something up to there. Um, for 1, 2 seconds, I will welcome if anyone has a question or anything to add before I finalize the last uh, slides that we have today. So if you have anything, please welcome. If you have anything to chip in, anything to talk, anything you want to add, please. The time is yours now. We have like 3 minutes to hear from you. Anyone? Anyone? Yes, Elizabeth. Miss Lizzie, welcome. If you have anything you want to add up before I finalize our discussion today. Elizabeth, you can unmute your mic, Elizabeth. It's enabled already.
Okay. Um, Good evening, everyone. Well, Judy, thank you so very much for well commendable presentation. It's very insightful, especially for me because I was not so well familiar with fire safety. However, I just have one question that I would like to ask. How does fire safety contribute to overall resilience of a business?
Okay. Now, as I said earlier, we have seen the statistic of how much damage that has been happening because of fire safety. So, speaking of how does it comes in, it's you prepare accordingly to make sure that you don't have first you don't have any fire emergency. So you put in place the safety measures to make sure that you prevent fire. But if you cannot prevent it because there's some degree that it can happen, then if the fire is happening, it can be detected at a very, very early stage. And if it's detected at the very early stage, you can suppress the fire. So you make sure you have the system that within the first second, I mean the first 30 minutes, you can really suppress the fire and everything is normal before even the fire spread into the all the entire work environment, or it can destroy further your assets. You have to make sure that your asset is being protected. So if your asset is being protected enough, that means into the face of the fire emergency, your asset can still be functioning as required because it was protected from before, even before the emergency happening. I think I've given you an insight, Elizabeth.
Yes, Judith, thank you so very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. So allow me to finalize the final we have in our discussion today on the framework for the business resilience. So we have the core components where we have the holistic approach, the proactive measures, reactive measures, and the cross-functional collaboration. So the holistic approach, in the holistic approach, you incorporate all the prior safety consideration into the every aspect of your resilience strategy that you have in your business. So from the operational planning to crisis management, you make sure that your fire safety, I mean, you have considered the fire safety. From the designing of the equipment, I mean, the machines that you are working on or you are using as operating machines for your workplace. So from there, you have to make sure that you consider fire safety, that everything that can lead to fire risk is being noted, I mean identified, and it is being mitigated accordingly. From that to the point of the crisis management. Lakini make sure that you implement every preventive measures to ensure that you can prevent the fire from happening, from keeping those protective doors, protective, I mean, the fire resistance walls, doors, and everything, from keeping the ignition sources and the fuels not close to each other, from controlling the level of fuel that you have into your workplace, the level of combustible that you have into your workplace, even the level of oxygen into some areas of your workplace, from controlling all of those, you make sure that you have all the preventive measures to make sure that the fire does not start into your workplace. And then it also include the reactive measures that you can use into the face of an emergency now. So if you have an emergency, make sure that you have a very strong equipment in places to suppress the fire, but you have the robust emergency response procedures to make sure that you can act into the face of a fire. But all this doesn't work well if you don't have a collaboration from all the departments and everyone into that organization. So from the human resources to the finance people to every department into your workplace, make sure that there is a collaboration, everyone knows, and they all have their hands together to make sure that the fire safety is being considered, and the fire safety is the fire safety is one of the key components, one of the very important components, one of the things that is being taken with high priority within the organization. So from the risk assessment, where you now, this is like a foundation for you to build a resilience against fire. From how you really analyze the fire, make sure you analyze from the personnel, the effect on personnel, the properties, the assets, the critical operations, the reputations, and everything. Make sure that you don't miss a thing. You can have an experienced the experts to help you develop this comprehensive risk assessment so that you can have enough data and make sure that you have captured as most as you can, uh, as most of the risk, as most of the hazard that as you can, so that you can have the strategies that capture almost everything. Don't forget to keep yourself updated with what is been happening to the industry so that you can have enough data as possible, that when you are analyzing the impact that fire can be happening can have into a workplace, then you have enough data and you review and update it as times goes on. Now At the end of the day, I will say, of course, the cost that can be associated with the fire safety implementation goes to the purchase and installation of those fire safety equipment and systems, the cost associated with the providing the training, the cost associated with the inspection and maintenance. But all of these costs are very less compared to the fire incident. So in the face of the fire incident, you have the saving. You save $1 million, which you can be used in repair and replacement of the fire, of the damage that has been caused by fire. But you save the downtime, the loss of productivity, the supply chain interruption. You save the cost associated with the litigation, insurance, regulatory fines. So all this that we have seen as the upfront cost um, of having a robust, comprehensive, and a strong fire safety in place can be um, can be less compared to the saving and the profit that we have into the event of fire uh, incident. And we even have the long-term benefit of making sure that our brand reputation is intact. So we increase the market share and even the revenue opportunities for our business and our workplace. This is one among the long-term benefits of having a strong fire safety plan and fire safety measures incorporated into our business resilient plan or our business continuity plan. And at the end, I will tell you, while the cost of fire safety implementation, while the cost of fire safety implementation might represent a significant upfront investment that most of us usually see, but the potential saving to the event of the fire incident, coupled with the long-term benefits of the business resilience, justify the return on investment and make it a sound and strategic decision for any organization. So up to there, so up to there, it's a time where we can. I've reached the end of our presentation. If you have any question, it's a time we can respond, and every one of us can take time to respond, or you can share anything. Was there something new that you have got from our discussion today, or something that you want to add up on our discussion today? Please welcome.
Hello, Judith.
Hello.
Can you see my question in chat?
Okay, I'm reading it right now. As we observe the trend in your country when fire occurs, especially in urban areas like Kariako, the damage is often severe. How is Solution Tank prepared to provide education to business districts like Kariako? Okay, now I will respond to this question as this. So we as Solution Tag, and not just Solution Tag, but as any, I can say any person or experts that we are into HSC and fire safety, yes, we have a role to educate our people. Now, when we are speaking of educating our people, we are starting with the regulators that we have, because at the end of the day, we might train the people, I mean, the community, but they are not strong enough resources to act in the face of the fire emergency. So we have started to train some people where we hold a public discussion. Sometimes we visit schools. Sometimes we usually have a media interview with the uh, community where we tell them about the fire safety, especially trying to mentioning some things that can lead to the fire incident. But again, we are also in contact with the regulators at the moment, we are trying to see how we can come together, join with the fire and rescue force in Tanzania, and how we can reach many people as possible, not only the companies where they present the fire, the major fires, but even the urban areas like Kariakoo and all the other areas. So we as Solution Tech, we are there. We advise the regulators, but as we are getting time, we'll reach out to people and we'll be asking every one of us, not just us, to come together, not to end the knowledge that we have today here, but taking this knowledge to the community, the people surrounding us, the people we live with, our friends out there, trying to tell them what can really happen into the fire when we have the fire emergency and what to hinder our fire, our fire strategies to act. Taking an example in areas like Kariakoo, sometimes we have fire emergency and you can find it was easier to mitigate earlier, but the roads are not clear enough to allow for those trucks to pass and all that. So we are still continuing to provide that knowledge to the people together with the authority, and we call for all of us to participate in that. Engineer Simalimoto, I think I've answered your question, and I've also
Yes,
placed a call to action to that. Anyone else, if we have anything before I hand over the discussion to our comms team, please, if you have anything to add up into our discussion, anything to take a note on, please, you're welcome.
Good evening again. June 8th, you have elaborated so well on how solutions stand prepared to provide education to people in order to prevent the incidents as these have been asked by Engineer Sibalimoto. That was very, very good question and very timely. I have one question. I will take you back on the measures that you said they need to be put into place. So what are the impact of poor fire safety measures on the financial health and reputation of a business? Because you highlight a little bit about the reputation of the company or reputation of our institution. So can you highlight on the impact of poor fire safety measures on the financial health and the reputation of the business?
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth, for that one of the thoughtful questions. Now I'll start with the damages it might have for the reputation of the company. So if you are speaking of having a very poor fire safety measure into your workplace, that means that company is not compliant. So if that company is not compliant, because at minimal safety measure we can have is those that are put forward by our regulators. So if you cannot comply to that, that company is non-compliant. So you can face a number of fines, and even the public, because the public now won't trust your product or your company anymore when an incident happens. And at the moment, as we are speaking into the business world of now, the people, your clients want to work with you only when they know that you are compliant enough. That's when they can work with you. So if you are non-compliant, that means you have not complied. That means you won't be having clients. Even your name out there won't be good. It won't be sounded good. No one will be there to speak well of your company. So that means your reputation or your brand is being damaged. And if it is being damaged, that means you cannot gain more clients. Even your market share will be reduced. So as it is reduced, that also influence the financial loss. Because when you're speaking of the financial loss, it's not only the fines that you have. The fines start from 50 million and above. You can be told to close your operation for 2 years. So 2 years, it's a lot of money that you could have. It's a lot of revenue that you could have gained into your company, but you are now losing it because you don't have enough or strong fire safety system when the fire has happened. Now, when the fire has happened and your fire safety measure is not strong, that means it cannot react or it cannot act to accommodate that fire and fight it or suppress it. That means you'll be losing the people. Even to death can happen because of fire. You'll be losing the assets that you have taken a long time to invest on. You'll be losing your operations. You'll be losing the profit that you have. Or if it is not that large enough, but you'll be having non-productive time, the downtime, because you need to now stop, maintain your system with the equipment and everything. So you also have the maintenance cost that you have to incur just because of the fire emergency and just because you didn't take care of uh, fire safety measures at the very first place. So all of that is cost associated to the financial loss if you have a very poor fire safety measure, and cost associated to the reputational damage if you have a very poor fire safety measure into your place. Lazy?
Thank you so very much,
Elisa?
Judy. You have very well elaborated, and I got some things to catch up with them. I kept my notes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Always welcome. So if you have anything else to and you would wish to have a more side talk or side chat with us, please. Uh, my number is there, my email is there, but you can scan to join our WhatsApp group there, where you can get more information as you wish. And at any time, please feel free to ask. It is our task as a HSC company, as HSC personnel, to make sure that our workplace still continue and it is safe into the face of any emergency, especially the fire safety emergencies. And it's our call, it's our task to make sure that we educate the society, even our bosses in our workplace, to make sure that they integrate fire safety into every aspect of the business continuity that they have.